Here are 16 brutally honest mixing truths that aren't really talked a lot about on YouTube. We're going to break down the myths that waste your time, the mindset traps that stall your growth, and the habits that are quietly separating the pros from beginners. These are hard lessons that I've learned from making songs for the past 10 years and releasing hundreds of them online. Number 16, I think, is also probably the most important, but let's start with the one mistake that every beginner makes, and most actually don't even realize you're doing it. So, number one, mixing is an art, not a checklist. So, yes, there are best practices, totally, but many times these best practices just have been beat. So, don't blindly always follow rules like always compress your vocal or you need X plugin to sound pro. Take a grain of salt with every single YouTube tutorial or a piece of advice you get, including this video. The truth is, some of the best mixes have broken rules entirely. So, it's really powerful to learn all the best practices and fundamentals, but then use your own tastes and confidence and flavor to add to your songs. Always question the rules. Number two is your eyes will always be the death to your mixes. So much of how we actually mix nowadays is actually we're just mixing with our eyes. We're not even really listening to things anymore. And in Logic like this, everything looks super sexy and the colors are so bright and nice, and I'm on a 4K monitor. Everything is so crisp and it just grabs all of my attention, and all these colors have an effect on how I'm mixing. And I catch myself staring at a plugin thinking like, whoa, there's so many problem frequencies here because I can like see it, the frequencies with this EQ. But if I just close my eyes and listen to the same sound, it sounds fine. So try to mix in a view like this where you just can see maybe the mixer. So you actually are limiting some things to your view, or you can go so far as to like buy a digital desk so you're not even looking at anything. If you can afford that, the more you can look less, you'll be able to hear better. The first step of any of this is just being aware of that. So even while you're looking, you're like, close your eyes and just listen instead. Number three, catch yourself listening to your song as an engineer instead of a music lover. Like you can be critical, and you should be critical on your mix and what to improve on your mix, but try to remember to adjust your listening style to a music lover that gives you a completely different perspective. Like, do you think your mom is really going to be worried about the EQ on your snare or the sub bass range? Like, absolutely not. They want a good song. They want a feeling and an emotion from the mix. That's it. So try to be less of an engineer, even though sometimes you have to, and be more of like a listen to the music as you would a music lover. Number four is getting feedback on your mix. Getting feedback is one of the best ways to actually improve your skill set as a mixer, but not all feedback is useful. And if someone suggests more reverb or compression, for example, on a track, ask like, what does the song actually need? Or is it just their taste talking? So the value of feedback isn't really in what they say, it's how you interpret it. So you need to learn to filter feedback through your own artistic lens, and this will take time to build that up. If you're not, otherwise you're just going to end up with a ton of songs that have like a Frankenstein mix of different parts stapled together, trying to just please everyone that's giving you feedback, but it just resonates with no one. Number five is you can get further with good recordings and volume than you can get with like 98% of the plugins on the market. You definitely know what I mean if you've mixed solid recordings. If not, it's time you got to get there. Focus so much on the source and not the plugins. Number six, just because your mix is loud doesn't actually mean it's good. And this is weird, right? Because loud sounds great all the time, but you'll actually make more of an impact if you can create more interesting dynamics in your mix so that you actually have exciting parts in the song instead of everything just being like so squashed. So catch yourself limiting your or compressing your mix too much, because yes, it does sound good when you're doing it. It's like, yeah, it sounds amazing, but it will actually hurt your mix in the end, and everything will just sound too squashed. And I pulled up a couple songs I did 6 years ago, and I was just listening to the mixes, and they were just so squashed, so loud. And that was just typical of what I was doing back in the day, because it just, at the end, you're just cranking everything, because it does, like loud does sound good. There is a time for that. Number seven, huge one, is to check your studio room to see if there are big boosts or cuts that are happening just from like the natural acoustics in your room with the sound coming out of your speakers. So if there are, which there probably are, then you're not hearing the correct source of sound, of like, you're not hearing the actual sound of what's coming out of your speakers because your room is like finagling with it. So, for example, like your room could be doing funny things like this on an EQ where you might have big dips or boosts in certain areas. So, to help with this, you can use a spectrum analyzer like SonarWorks is the one I use. This will balance the sound and try to course correct the room, or invest into sound treatment that you can put in your room. The thing that you should start with first are to like trap the corners where the bass can start rumbling, and the first reflection spots, so like the sound coming out of the speakers and where it hits first, because it's going to hit something first and then bounce around everywhere. So if you can trap that sound and diffuse that sound, the better off you're going to be. Number 8, act as the conductor in an orchestra and conduct your mix in real time. So what I mean by this is actually automating your mix. So try this. Turn every track that you have in Logic, turn them to touch, for example. And now, while this automation is on, play your mix from start to finish and just focus on volume by turning things up or down in certain areas to make the mix feel more alive. And you could go further by not just automating volume, but automating reverb and delays and other plugins too. You can automate anything, but subtle movements here have a big impact. You're not going to want to automate things too much, but these subtle movements and automation in your mix is what makes your mix really, really come to life. Be that conductor. Number 9 is it's super scary to have a track with no plugins on it. It feels like wrong. Again, our eyes are looking at in Logic like there's no little blue pill there, no plugins, and it feels wrong to me every time I do it. And I even know that it's totally fine that you don't have any plugins, but you're thinking like, well, shouldn't there be at least an EQ or maybe a bit of compression or some reverb? Well, no, like not necessarily. You don't have to have plugins on everything. If you have a great recording, it just sounds perfectly EQ'd or there's nothing wrong with it and it's compressed on the way in, so it's pretty well maintained. Like you don't need plugins. Plugins need to have purpose. Number 10, if you're a songwriter or producer, this one should sit right at home for you, but you need to have peaks and valleys in your mix, just like you do in the song and the production too. Width, volume, space, frequency range, these should all be creating different feelings and sections in the mix that are like payoff points to the listener. Like a common example, like doesn't it feel great when the chorus gets really huge or wide, but then again it comes down in verse 2? This is peaks and valleys. This is part of mix dynamics. So like using panning or using space or volume to pay off things or make things sound bigger or smaller. So not just as a producer, but as a mixer, you should be thinking like this too. Number 11, and this is a real truth for probably a lot of you, is just that you've mixed your song too much and now you actually don't even know where you are. This has happened to me many times. So you think about shutting the whole thing down because you're just like lost with in your subjectivity. So sometimes, yes, you might need to throw the song in the trash, or more often than not, you probably just need to duplicate the project, turn off all the plugins, and just start from fresh. But time cap yourself to 1 or 2 hours to rebuild your mix because you don't want to spend like another entire day just rebuilding the mix to where you just were. So having that time constraint and the freshness of the tracks without any plugins, you'll probably mix a lot faster, or you're just going to end up realizing, hey, like the problem isn't really in my mix or the plugins that I'm adding, it's actually the production. Number 12, jumping all over the place with volume. Did this all the time, still catch myself doing this, turning the volume up while you're mixing because it feels good because you want to listen to it louder, and then going back down and then coming back up a little bit and then going back down. Like, sure, you got to have some fun with volume, but try your best to mix at one comfortable listening volume for a set time. This is going to allow your ears to have a benchmark. It's kind of like cooking soup and constantly changing the temperature every 30 seconds. Like, let things simmer, let it be consistent, and you'll be able to mix a lot better because you have that benchmark. One thing you could do is just like set on your interface a little piece of tape or like a little marker where like, hey, this is my listening volume at like 3 notches, or like 3 on the interface, on the universal audio interfaces, you have like the green little colors. So I know at like 4 green colors, that's my chill listening volume. Number 13, mix in a different session. I know a lot of you, and me too, are mixing our productions in the same session, but it can be helpful to mix in a different session if you've never tried this before, to get out of that production headspace and more into the mixing headspace. So bounce down all your tracks with the plugins on it, or like to what sound you want to have kind of baked into the track. This is also going to help our CPU if we put all those tracks in a new session. It will just trigger your mixing headspace instead of that production headspace, which I think is going to have an impact on the result. Number 14, remove the solo button from your workflow. You can actually hide it in Logic and probably other DAWs. Mixing in solo is super helpful because we can get detailed, we can listen in detail to the sound, and this is great, but only sometimes, right? Like you can get too carried away with this in the mix by cleaning up all the individual tracks and all the sounds by doing surgical EQ and de-noise and de-click and all this stuff. Sometimes you need to do that, right? But in reality, does it really matter on like the song, like the whole thing when you're listening to everything together? Are you just wasting time? These are questions that should be in your head while you're doing solo EQ or solo things. Don't remove it because it's there for a purpose. You need the solo button, but catch yourself when you're in that solo world to make sure there is a real purpose behind it, or you might just be missing out on some glue that could be actually tying the whole track together. Number 15, you will want to add some mix bus processing onto your mix. But the truth here is that you might be doing too much on your mix bus processing. It's laughable for me to look at some of my old mixes and just see like the stack of plugins that I added on my mix bus. Now I'm just adding a bit of compression or just like the ozone plugin because it's really, really easy, the isotope ozone plugin. So you want to do mix bus processing, but just catch yourself with how much you're doing and be aware of like, if you're mixing into like a huge stack of plugins, then that's difficult because you're changing so much of the sound of every track. So for me, I personally like to mix everything without any mix bus processing. And then when I'm kind of like halfway, 75% there, I'll put the mix bus on and then finish the mix like that. Number 16, and probably by far the most important one, is the mix purpose. Even before you start a mix, you should know what the mix purpose is. So usually this is the vocal track, which carries the lyrics and the lead melody, but maybe it's a killer bass line, or maybe it's the purpose of the song is to make you cry because of the piano part, or maybe it's to make you actually dance because of the kick snare combo. The purpose is usually created by the producer, but it's your job as the mixer to bring it out. And in most cases, like you on my channel, you are the producer and you're the mixer. So without a mix purpose, you're kind of going to wander through your mix like a lost little puppy dog. But a purpose grounds you and gives you a starting point to build everything around. If you don't have a mix purpose, then it could mean that you actually just haven't found it yet in the production, which is something you must absolutely get right before learning any of these 16th truths. So watch this video here, and I'm going to teach you all the fundamentals you need to learn in production so that you can nail your mix every time. See you there.